Hey, Kevin.
Hi, Nicola. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, doing well.
Good.
Nice weather here.
I heard that it's hot, but at
Oh,
least it's very hot in London. I don't know how it is in Edinburgh.
hot is relative, Nicola. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
It was 26 degrees here today.
Yeah,
Warm.
it's kind of hot. Yeah. Do you have a lot of humidity when it's hot here, or?
It can be because it's coastal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so you can get high temperatures and close to 100% humidity.
That's a bad mix usually.
Yeah. I had someone visit from Spain, and
Yeah,
I took him walking in the hills and said it's going to be hot. It's going to be over 20 degrees. And he
yeah.
said, "Oh, that's nothing. I go walking in 35 degrees in Spain." But what he hadn't accounted for was A, the humidity,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and B, the fact that the ozone layer is thinner. So he came back, A, exhausted, and B, with sunburn because he wasn't aware
Yeah,
of how strong the sun was.
yeah. That makes a lot of difference. Definitely. It's is it only the two of us today?
I don't know. Neil is not able to join. He's been
Okay.
affected by the heat, unfortunately.
Oh. I hope it's not too bad.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's susceptible to it, so he'll need to cool off
Okay.
and recover.
Alex isn't joining. Sebastian is on PTO. The others should be there. Matt
Yeah,
Davis
Marcus,
isn't joining.
I believe, is back.
Yes, they should be back from Rare Evil.
Marcus saying he'll participate.
Okay.
Let's hold on for a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
There's very light attendance last week as well.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, last week it was in the middle for Rare Evil as well, so it doesn't help. Yeah.
Hi, Johnny. How you doing?
Hi, John.
All right, overlapping meetings.
Yeah.
Hi, Jack.
Talking about overlapping meeting, I need to drop at the top of the hour, unfortunately.
Okay. So Duncan Coots he's in the US. Neil sends his apologies. Sebastian is saying is on part-time, is on PTO.
Yeah.
Marcus said he would join us from his car. He seems to be traveling if he can. So I don't know about Adam or Ben.
Adam's in that overlapping meeting right now, so he'll be along after.
Adam will be along. Okay. Yeah, but it's looking like we probably won't have quorum again. So if Adam, Ben, and Marcus turn up, we might be quorate, but otherwise not. So I'd suggest waiting a minute or two. Hi, Lorenzo.
Hey, Kev. Hey, everyone else. How's it going? Hey, Nicholas.
Yeah, so a lot of people seem to be away today as well, Lorenzo. So we'd held over the discussion of VRF tiebreaker until we had more people here. But it looks like we probably won't have enough for a full discussion. So maybe we just want to hold that off until next week's meeting, when we may get more people attending. I'll just paste what I have as an agenda. Lex, did you get notes from hi Ben? So I just pasted what I have as the agenda. So Ben, I was just, since we seem to have relatively few people here today as well, I was going to push the VRF tiebreaker discussion back to next week. Neil's not able to join. Duncan, I know, is traveling this week in the US, so hopefully we'll be back next week. Gone. You may try to rejoin us. Tex or Lorenzo, do you have notes from last week's meeting? Did either of you manage to take minutes last week?
I was not in the session last week.
Okay.
I have the recording. I was trying to get to minutes this morning, but I've been doing developer advocate interviews, so I just don't have them ready yet. But
Okay.
it's very minimal. It was not much. It was basically just you and Neil talking for a little bit.
Right. Okay. Well, that will make a brief set of minutes. Now, so my memory was we were going to put the VRF tiebreaker back. We had a discussion about the repositories, which we resolved. Hi, Adam. So essentially, we said we don't need a heavyweight approach to discussing the names of repos, for example. Just if there are suggestions to create repositories that you feel need some form of approval, then run them past us. So if there are things that you think might seem dubious, might appear dubious, then we're happy to provide input on that and validation. Adam, were you at Rare Evo?
Oh yeah.
Okay, great. So what I'm going to propose then is we've got a number of items on the agenda. I pasted that in the chat. I was going to kick it off with a report from Rare Evo. I proposed Duncan Coutts or Marcus, but neither of them are here. So perhaps you could give us an update on anything significant from Rare Evo.
Well, unfortunately, I only got to participate in the governance days before, because during the show I didn't get to attend any of the workshops or talks because of being attached to the booth and the Hydra vending machine demo that we were doing there. I was kind of on staffing the vending machine duty the entire time. So yeah, I didn't even get to, like, I think I saw the Intersect booth before the show opened, but I wasn't over there the entire time. I missed the committee hour and everything else, unfortunately. Lorenzo had to bring me my little pins that I qualified for participating. Maybe Lorenzo or Tex could actually give us an update, since they are here, actually.
Yeah, I can share some of the stuff. I mean, outside of the IO workshop, which was really interesting, and I know that there's some notes that's been going out. Mostly was discussion around budget and like strategy, and how the DREPs delegate the executive authority, let's say, to there was talk about it like an executive or executives functions. So that was useful. During the show itself, well, I think I didn't attend the workshop during the sessions, just because I was at the Intercept booth. The Intercept booth, we had a lot of people from either members of Intercept, but also a lot of people that weren't members of Intercept yet. That was quite interesting to see. Also, we had a lot of committee members, and we made like little pins. That's what Adam was mentioning. I think nothing particularly like related to this committee from them outside that there were a lot of people interested in actually the committee work, including the work that you did. It was useful to kind of explain what Intersect does. One thing that actually came out of the product committee workshop, which is relevant to here, is the need to expand. I mean, we already knew this and we're doing this work, right? So we're working together on this vision. But was a need to expand and clarify that that's not a product vision. That's not the product committee is just driving that effort. But we need to make clear that that's an ecosystem wide. So the TSC, that's why it's involved. Marketing committee, that's why it's involved. and the other committees need to be involved too. So when it comes out, it's not a product committee proposal. It's a proposal from Intercept, where based on the feedback that we got, where Cardano could be in the next 5 years. I thought that was useful. I think it links to one of the items you got here in the agenda. Thanks. There's some, maybe you join also some of the workshops during the two events, but I don't know, because the booth was quite busy.
I was only at the IO governance workshop, but I was not at any workshops during the actual Rare Evo event. So I would say the same. I mean, there was a lot of focus around DREPs, what governance looks like, and budget. But it was primarily a focus to try to get some community sentiment and DREP opinion from the DREPs who showed up. Nothing that specifically got into anything of relevance by the TSC.
Yep.
Yeah, so obviously one of the things we've been hoping, Lorenzo, with the budget proposal was to have funding to go to meetings like this, and that of course hasn't happened. So we need to think about how we promote better technical social integration with the community.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know that there is, even if the committees didn't have direct funding, like only one so far have been funded. Product committee is going still through the process, but that was for specific action. But in the Intercept budget, there is still some planning to support committees regardless. You know, there is discussion in the IC about the stipends. That's one side, but the other side is how do we make sure that, for example, if there are critical events like Rare Evo happening, how do we make sure that at least the chairs or they're able to attend, because otherwise there is some lost context. So I know that that's definitely in there. The Intercept proposal Treasury action passed last week, so now we're kind of diving into a little bit more detail. So I know that Jack is going to share some more. But overall, I think like another positive thing is that there was a lot of appreciation for everyone's work here in Intercept, and the committee's effort and the all that was created so far. So I think that goes to all the members that have participated so far, showing that there is value in what we do here. So that I think creates a good foundation for what happens next. So I thought that was quite valuable. But otherwise, yeah, just a positive event. I think gives us a good platform to go ahead and continue in the direction that we're going.
Okay, so thanks, Lorenzo. So what I'm going to, so you reminded me that we should mention the committee stipends. We can cover that probably at the end. What I would probably suggest we do is given that Nicola has to leave on the hour, is to pick up on the ISC survey, where we've been asked to provide feedback, and any other items, Nicola, that you think are important for you to be involved in the discussion. So let me share the screen.
Kevin, could I perhaps suggest, just in order of priorities, because I know that we have a little bit of time to give feedback to this survey that Phil has proposed. Although we do have like a tighter deadline on reviewing and feedbacking on the remit, because the committee elections are approaching quite quickly. Would it make sense, perhaps, since we're a little bit of a smaller group here, and maybe the discussion might be easier for you guys to handle, to review that?
We can come back to the remit. I know Adam was keen to focus on other things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the remit, because that's more advisory and we're only saying what we think the remit should be, I don't think it gets us much to spend a lot of time in meeting, but allow that to happen asynchronously for those that are interested. But I would rather accomplish something a little bit more meaningful if we could, and actually promote advice and feedback coming from the committee versus just self-defining what the role of the committee is. If we get into that continuous loop, we're just wasting time.
Yeah, okay. So So the remit has been shared with the committee members, Lorenzo. We've taken a copy and invited people to comment on that or to make changes to that. What I can try to do is to get back, edit down a revised version based on the feedback that's been given. And
Okay, so you have a separate document as well, because my assumption was I haven't been seeing any comments on that document, so I thought that there wasn't any movement on it. But if you guys are working on the async, that's fine.
So I'd taken a copy because I think not everyone could comment on your document, Lorenzo. So
Okay.
And also some of the discussion could have been quite contentious. So things we wouldn't necessarily want to put out to the public.
Fair
So-
enough. Yeah, if you can feedback to the other document, or if we can discuss it separately, that would be perfect. Just if there's like a time constraint, it's important that the TSC. I mean, that's your remit, so you guys need to decide it and vote on it. That as simple as that.
Well, I think what Adam's saying is that we haven't been allowed to decide our remit, right? So
Yeah, but now
it's kind of pointless to discuss it. But let's take that out of band, Lorenzo. Let's not focus on that. So let's move anyway. If we can move on to the other item.
Text has signed up.
Yeah, I was aware of that. I was going to text. Is this related to the remit? If so, I'm going to suggest you just write into the TSC Slack chat.
It's related to common practice altogether with the committee. These documents need to be in the shared drive. I just a small note on contention, this or that, between myself and Lorenzo supporting the committee in this instance. We have the responsibility to give you all the proper protection that you deserve. So the point is, access is monitored or managed by the secretaries of the committee, which we both have access to do to ensure that everyone can access those documents. Documents need to be in Google Drive for that purpose, so that the committee can all access and communicate. And communications within those documents until the committee agrees that they're ready to go is protected in that instance. So I'm just pushing here. I guess I'm kind of putting a little bit of a strong arm on this. If you're working on a document, there's absolutely no reason for it not to be in the Technical Steering Committee Google Drive. And until the committee approves that to be sent out anywhere different, there shouldn't be any concerns about contention within that document, because that's just the committee working together. So,
okay, so I think I noted that there was some access issues. So people said they couldn't access it, which is why we took a copy. But we can sort that out. So going on to the role, intersect role and identity document. This has been shared to the ISC by Phil Lewis. Phil Lewis is proposing to raise a survey of intersect membership, basically over the role and identity. And he is concerned that the pivot has changed the relationship of the committee structures. It's changed the purpose of the committee structures. What he's trying to do is to obtain confirmation about what the intended purpose, what the expectation is from the membership of the role that Intersect should be fulfilling. Because as we're aware, there's been a bit of a deviation from the original intended purpose. So what he's proposing is to run a survey of the membership, the individual members of and institutional members of Intersect, and asking the 4 questions that I've highlighted on screen. So should Intersect continue to be a budget facilitator for anyone? Should Intersect committees be permitted to decide what strategic programs of work they will initiate and how work will be executed? Whether changes should be made to the number of function of the committees that we have, and for any general comments. So I encourage you all to look at that, provide comments to Phil, what he's intending to send this survey out to the membership in the near future. And this is probably going to be relevant, I guess, to the election process. So early feedback on this would be very welcomed. I know that a number of the TSC members will have input to make on that. Right, sorry, I'm just catching up on the chat. Just lost my mouse function. I can't close the sharing.
Not just as much function. His presence also.
Yeah.
He's
At least,
returned.
yeah. At least you aren't sharing anymore, Kevin. That's good. But you're on mute.
Ah, dear.
Yeah.
So, something weird happened with my mouse, Nikolai. Okay. So next item I had, maintain a retention program. So this is being promoted by the OSC as part of the program of work that it's proposed. Johnny, were you at the meeting yesterday?
I was at the release call yesterday, and I was bringing it up with leads on different repositories, and there's been a little bit of pushback about the mentorship time that it would take to get completely new developers on. So there's been feedback on my draft questions to say that they should be sort of redrafted to be more specifically asking for examples of contribution that people have already made to core repositories as part of the applications process. I pushed back to that a little, saying it severely limits the pool of potential candidates to apply. So I'm trying to work out a compromise. There's a meeting scheduled for Monday between IO and some repository leads and Christian and myself to try and hash out that compromise. So we're working that out. And then on the other side, there's another set of repositories outside of core that'll need to be part of this program as well, and there needs to be an assessment criteria set up for how to evaluate applications after they come in, and then how to make sure to verify the quality of their work after the fact. So there's a bunch of discussions ongoing about this line item.
Yeah, so I think Johnny, I think there are two parts to this, right? One is the part of the program which is designed to keep people in the ecosystem. Okay, so knowledgeable individuals or institutions that have contributed in the past to Cardano development, and the developer team can clearly see the value in doing that. And the other is about new blood. And the issue there from a developer's perspective is that you can't simply bring new people in without giving them proper training. Otherwise, you dilute the effort rather than enhancing it. So that's really what we have to.
Yeah, in response to that concern, it became a question of what level of support would they be giving. Like, they wouldn't necessarily be doing direct coding on things like Ledger, but they might provide ancillary support for things that are being left behind. I think Adam and Tex can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, we're absolutely seeing pissing on the fire hydrant on behalf of the IOG or IOE teams. You know, what I saw during the node release meeting yesterday was absolute fear that, God forbid, anybody like inject somebody into their team without their complete control. So I think there's a misunderstanding and a misalignment of what the intent of this project is, which is not to bring somebody else in that would in any way actually work on their contracted feature development, but instead would be helping them triage issues, help them get community contributions and review the community contributions and bubble them up to the team lead, you know. So we just need to frame it in such a way that this is not competition to contracted development work, but it is just an independent individual that should have some amount of qualifications to handle that particular repository. But it's not a new member of their team. They don't get to dictate what that person is doing or working on. That's up to the OSC to decide whether or not that individual is living up to our criteria for them having maintainership roles on the repository, essentially.
Yes, as I understood it, Adam, the concern was about the amount of time it would take to, for example, review our PRs if people didn't have the experience and weren't integrated into the team. So was that rather than a fear of people doing non-contracted development?
But we're not requiring that the contractors must get their PRs approved by this new person. Right. So this new person could only help with like sourcing technical documentation writing or fixing small bug issues or whatever, that could be their role while they're nearby and learning and watching the entire process evolve. Because again, this is not a new engineer for them to leverage. That wasn't ever the intention, especially not at a rate of $1,500 per month. They're not going to get a cracked Haskell developer for those kind of prices. So we're looking for more casual, keep interesting people at least tangentially attached to the ecosystem versus bringing in a new developer, because we would just pay whoever the contractor is another 200 or 300K per year if what we wanted was another engineer, because that's what a lot of the team said. I don't need another engineer.
Right.
And the answer, that we're going to give them on Monday is, well, we weren't providing you one. that was never our intent.
Okay. So it sounds like there needs to be a bit of diplomacy here. Unfortunately, I couldn't join the meeting yesterday.
Yeah, well, and I think it probably boils down more to how people view the definition of what a maintainer is in their head.
Yeah.
So like the actual like software maintenance versus the repository maintenance and kind of good housekeeping on the open source side of things versus actual maintaining software. But Tex, did you have something to add along those lines?
Honestly, it's a and this will be covered again, but it's a reframing of the design behind the program, right? As it stands, Cardano may be open source by a technological definition, but if you go out and ask the people that want to contribute to Cardano, they don't feel like it's open source because the thresholds of understanding are so high. So by attacking it directly at the maintainer level, we're not only able to give people unique experience, talented individuals unique experience is the goal here, but we're also able to make the project more accessible to the community in a positive fashion, as is designed by making Cardano open source. Otherwise, what's being suggested is if we did some type of collaboration to say, hey, how do we as the entities that want to develop Cardano pay ourselves? That's a completely different model than the paid open source model and what it preaches.
Yeah, I think you're taking a slightly different line to Adam Tex. So you're actually proposing bringing new people in, contributing in a concrete way to some part of the code development. Adam was taking a slightly different line there, and that's where I think you might be hitting a bit of resistance, because anyone who is contributing, as I said, is going to need to have their PRs reviewed. They're going to need to be assimilated into the team, so they're doing things in the way that the team, the same way that the team works. There is some cost or overhead to doing this.
If anything, I'm supplementing what Adam is saying. I'm not trying to provide a different story, but there's going to need to what needs to essentially happen is that there needs to be a determination of the resistance, and some resistance is good, some resistance is bad in this instance.
I don't think the resistance is bad. There's just concern. Obviously, what we need to do is we need to maintain the high standards that we have for software development. And I think the other concern is probably that developers being tasked to do things that other than supporting onboarding or helping these other developers. So there's a fear probably of the increased workload to do this, and possibly lack of appreciation by management of the effort that might be involved. So that's something we'll have to resolve. Christian.
Yeah, just to clarify, each project's going to have their own needs, so the role may differentiate. That's why maintainer's kind of out there. But it, like Adam said, it's not to add someone to their team. It's getting community representation to do the other open source part that isn't being done, which is helping with onboarding, minor triage, documentation, things like that. Because Cardano node has 300 some open issues that a maintainer can help with that. While the team does what they already got the treasury withdrawal to do. And then other projects that have minor issue counts, it's a different kind of set. It's just trying to diversify what's there. And these maintainers over time may even become part of the core teams on contract. You never know. But the other piece to this too is people who are not on contract now that were previously, this program could benefit them as well, potentially. So.
So Johnny, you're leading the charge here.
Yeah, and a meeting's been set up as a result of going into that meeting yesterday, and it will be to try and work out what these defined rules are and sort of levels of engagement people will have once they get into the program. And then, of course, the other side of that program is the community repositories that are used by the Cardano ecosystem that are not part of Core, and approaching them and getting maintainership onboarded with stipends as well. So there's two aspects to this program: Core and community. And half of the people being stipended will be in Core, and the other half community.
Okay, so I said from a TSC perspective, obviously what I think we need to do is to make sure that issues of security, code quality, efficiency of development are respected.
And on that point, I can share with the committee in our chat the link to the series of questions that are sort of the filtering process for that to verify people's understanding or experience as much as they can in an application form, so that we're pre-filtering before going into the next step.
Who's making the decision on the maintainers, Johnny? Is this Intersect or is it the developer teams?
I'll defer to Tex because at the moment on the developer advocate side, the decision making is going through committee and open source office. I'm not sure if we're planning to do that the same way with maintainer retainer, because the people that are being affected in Core are the repository leads, right? So they'd probably be part of the assessment as well.
It'll be all three. Open source office, the committee, and the Core teams, because the projects themselves have to accept the maintainers coming in.
Exactly. That's the reason I turned up to the release meetings, to try and get in contact with people and make them aware of the program and try and get their buy-in.
Yeah, so I think you actually need to engage with the repository owners and the developer teams in selecting people for this program.
I agree. So I will be trying to drum up assessment from existing repository heads to look at applications as well and review interviews, but we'll see how engaged they get.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Tex.
Yeah, I would just note a small sentiment piece. I discussed this with the committee in one of our async conversations, but we've been marketing the maintainer retainer program paid open source model since late last year. I believe it was dropped before our budget program was even put together. And so we're pushing the program along as we need to, and we will consider the other opinions. But I would say there's a small, maybe unforeseen ask right now that the project leads should be reaching out to open source office in reference to this program to say, hey, I volunteer my repo as I know that I need or can use this support so that we can prove the use of this program. If we don't have the rest of the community, the development teams also buying into this, that makes it a little bit harder for us. But what does that tell the community is more the question that I would pose back to them. So just I guess that's a devil's advocate theory question there.
Okay. I mean, it strikes me that there's an opportunity here to, for example, open up the discussion via our Twitter feed text. So maybe to make the community aware of what's being done and So perhaps Johnny could provide us with something suitable to pass on that one there. And Adam, I see you made a comment in the chat. So it's about. Do you want to summarize it?
Yeah, so it was just generically just something to keep thinking about as we get into the community repositories that are going to be eligible for this maintainer retainership program. We have some that were suggested, like basically all of the different TX pipe initiatives, Dolos and all these different things that they do. But then you have other community projects that are helpful, like Lucid Evolution and Mesh.js for transaction building and stuff. So how do we avoid like one organization getting 15 paid maintainers kind of in their orbit, and then others only getting 1 or 2? So we do have to make sure that we're, I guess, hopefully being equitable relative to the actual impact of a particular repository on the ecosystem, and not just handing out these stipends, which could in some parts of the world be close to a half-time or a full-time employment relative to value. Make sure we're not being too liberal with how we give them out, to where we're actually getting good impact for our value for money, as Neil would say. But go ahead, Tex, real quick, and then we can move on maybe to the next.
Yeah, just with the detailed explanation there, I think it is a good critical risk to raise. But I would also arbitrate that there are so many steps or approval bodies in the process as far as what's going to get decided here. We may end up in a conversation where Intersect would either be incubating or adopting a project into our ownership, which can alleviate some of that potential conflict of interest or too much to one party.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So I think we can close that item off. Thanks, everyone. Next item I had was coming back to the product committee vision document. So as I think it was you, Lorenzo, said, that really this is not a product committee document. It's not a product vision. This is more of a vision for the Cardano ecosystem. So I was reading it earlier today, and I was thinking, well, actually, this isn't really defining what Cardano the product should be. A lot of it is about ecosystem involvement. There were some particular details that I felt weren't quite, well, might be misinterpreted. So has everyone had a chance to read this document? I know that it was provided to us 2 or 3 weeks back.
Yeah, that's a link to the live version. I think the easier way for you guys would be to, since you I assume you're all comfortable with GitHub, you're always able to see the latest version. If you have comments, I think you can open just like a PR and suggest changes. So the idea is that in the vision part, that's ecosystem-wide where Cardano could be in the next 5 years. I think like you can do actually a lot of detailed work in the strategy document, which is the page below, where we actually talk about target markets, potential clients. So that's where you see like the product side. Also, we talk about the community. So yeah, so both of these are editable from GitHub. So probably for you, the easiest way would be if you have recommendation or things to add, actually on the technical side on your side or anything else, to be honest, open a PR on either or. And what we're doing is like more or less weekly, we're incorporating feedback. Now we need to incorporate the feedback from the Redigo workshop. Main feedback there was to maybe rename some of the sections so they're not just called vision, mission, and purpose, because they are high-level words and people might get confused with those. So we'll replace them with like with longer sentences so people understand what we're talking about, and also there might be less pushback.
Thanks, Lorenzo. So I don't think we need a coordinated response to this. I think we just need to provide individual comments. So I don't think there's this question, unless there's something which people feel is particularly problematic, I think it's better simply to provide individual comments to this. As I said, I was looking through it earlier, and it goes definitely beyond what you would see as product. So it's covering a number of issues to do with culture first approach, culture and localized approach. So this is engaging different parts of the Cardano ecosystem. And this clearly is something which is not just, there may be some product implications, but it's clearly going beyond what you would see as being part of defining the Cardano product per se. It's not the blockchain that's being defined. It's the culture around the inclusiveness around the blockchain. From a technical perspective, so quite a lot of this looked to me like desiderata, things which are good to have, but maybe lacking in clear directions as to how to achieve them, Lorenzo. Okay, so it's easy. Sometimes it's easy to say things, but the devil is in the detail. You need to work out what does that actually mean. So something I had a bit of a problem with myself was with the idea of invisible technology. I'm pretty sure that Duncan and Neil would say something about this too, because the core blockchain infrastructure that we're developing might not be completely seamless and invisible to the user, but that doesn't really matter, because we're building. What should be happening is layers should be built on top of it that do provide a good or as seamless as possible experience to the average user. So I think you probably go astray if you try to make the blockchain, the layer one itself, extremely easy to use. You'll be losing out on properties of possibly security, performance, scalability, provability, all kinds of important things that we need in the layer one.
Yeah, I think that's 100% the feedback that we need to address. So again, as you were saying, Kev, this is not just looking at the layer one. This is looking at ecosystem wide. So it includes also the layer twos, even the partner chains. For example, one element of detail that I would assume the TSC will add is exactly what you just said. So for example, to enable this, you would look at not the layer one, but others, right? So that's exactly what would be great for you guys to add in here. Of course, we need to be careful of not going into so when we're gonna get into a roadmap, right, then we're gonna go into the details. So say like, look, this year, if that's what we want to achieve, this is how we do it. But nevertheless, what you just said is exactly the type of feedback that we should add here, that product committee can't really do because we don't know as much as you.
Yes, that was one thing that struck me, and another was some of the KPIs. So the KPIs are sometimes quite specific. $200 million target. That's both specific and vague, Lorenzo. Because obviously, yes. The question is where is $200 million value coming from? And obviously, it's tied not to ADA, which we have some control over, but tied to external fiat values that we don't necessarily have any control over. So that's one metric that might need a little bit more exploration. $200 million, I would assume, would be some target transact value in terms of transactions, as opposed to total value locked or some other metric. So you can see what I'm saying.
Yeah. We'll need to refine that. Yeah, as I think there is some comments around those 200 million. We'll need to calculate. The probably was like calculated based on revenue back to the treasury. So looking at Cardano as a whole, So it was a mix of things. But as you say, like when we transitioned from the old version, which you guys have seen, to this, a lot of details got hidden or lost. So we'll probably need to bring some of that back into this strategy.
Great. Yeah, in particular, one thing you could say, Lorenzo, is if you're only turning over $200 million worth of value, and you're extracting something like $150 million per year from the treasury, pretty clearly what you've got is not sustainable, because the return to treasury is only going to be at the order of $20 million. Okay.
And we're spending much more, yeah, of course.
We're spending much more, or the community is spending much more. Okay, so people have to be aware of that, because ultimately the budgets won't balance in a situation like that.
Mm-hmm. Would I perhaps suggest, I mean, I'm taking note of all this stuff, actually, sending it over to the product committee as we speak. Would it make sense to create a PR from TSC that you guys can use to, or basically to like submit your comments so that it all fits into one PR, and then maybe we merge that every like couple of weeks, depending on how much feedback you collect. We're gonna have other PRs as well, I assume.
Well, what I probably do would be to what I found works for this group is to have a Google Doc, for instance, that people write into, and then obviously that could be passed on. That could be passed on as a PR if people want to. But trying to get something coherent from a set of diverse opinions. It's quite a large group. That can be problematic. Or as said, individuals could provide PRs if they wished. But I'm open as to what people prefer. Adam, Johnny, Ben, have you had a chance to look at this yet? I know I've raised it a couple of times.
Oh, Ben, I saw you unmuted, but we didn't hear anything there. I've looked over it a few times, and yeah, I'm just kind of giving it another glance in the actual rendered version today, where I noticed this like little typo and stuff. But yeah, and I've attended over like probably half of the workshops that the product committee has held thus far. So I've definitely been close to the drafting of this document myself.
Okay.
Sorry there. Apparently I was double muted. Yeah, I've taken a couple looks. I don't have a lot of feedback beyond what's already been said, though.
Okay. So what I'll do then, and Johnny, have you looked at it?
I have, but again, more general reading. I don't have any explicit feedback as of yet.
Okay. So Lorenzo, what I'll propose doing then is I'll create a Google Doc where we can collect feedback. I'll put my feedback into that. If people have specific comments to make on the proposal, suggestions for improvement, I suggest they just raise their own PRs for that, and then we'll provide the collected feedback to the product committee as either as a PR or as a document, and leave them to deal with that. Does that sound like a good way to proceed?
That sounds good to me, but I assume it needs to make sense to you guys. If the Google Doc is better and the single PRs are easier, I think that makes more sense. Perhaps to kind of narrow down the ask here, because I was saying at the beginning, it's as I said, the product committee is helping to facilitate this as looking at Cardano ecosystem as a product, let's say, but that's only that. Outside of that, we'll need to make sure that we see this as an overall like strategy. So if you look at the vision document, give feedback. I think personally from your side, if you think that there is something that in the vision document doesn't align with what you think should be correct, instead when you look at the strategy document, what I would expect is, well, basically like STSC to add, I mean, either add like extra points or extra sections to expand strategy-wise, how do we reach what we're discussing here in the vision from a technical point of view? So really focus on we're discussing, for example, the community element there, and we're discussing the market, but what we miss is technically what is missing at the moment that needs to happen in the next 5 years if we want to reach this vision. So I would say focus on that as a task so that we get the technical element in that strategy too. For both layer 1, the layer 2s, the partner chains, that everything that you think it's important to be mentioned.
Yeah, I think from a technical perspective, the vision lacks grit, right? So it's defining some general principles.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's on the vision. It's very sometimes it's also a little bit personal. So add whatever you think makes sense. That's again, it's an ecosystem one vision. So it's high level for that reason. But then in the strategy, we can go down as details as we can. So we can say, for example, to reach that vision, this is where the community should get to. This is where the layer 1 should get to. That's how many L2s we need to have. I don't know. These are the progress we need to make. So that's the how. This is the how, what you're going through. And the other is just the where and the what, let's say.
Sure. So what I was saying from the strategy was that there were only a few things being identified as being technical directions, Lorenzo. So scalability and finality are both being identified. Finality is not being well defined. Okay, but I know that at Rare Evo, Apex Fusion, Duncan Coutts presented some work where they have been able to show that in practice, we already have extremely good finality.
Mhm.
Okay, so the question is, do we need to do anything to achieve the finality requirements? This is without even going down the Paras route. If you successfully submit a transaction, simply by knowing that the transaction has been submitted, you know you have a greater than 99% probability that your transaction will appear on chain within some small finite time period, a number of minutes. Okay, so that's empirically, Lorenzo. So one of the questions that would have to be raised would be, is that sufficient, or is more needed technically? Because from one perspective, well, we've already met this fast finality requirement, right? Why are we wasting time and effort doing more?
That's a good point. It might be like the perception of it from a user side more than the actual thing. So that might be, for example, one thing to mention. So yeah, I think that's another good feedback to audience, that we actually already have it, and that's what we have at the moment. So we might need to refine, like, do we need to actually improve finality, or do we need to make it more to improve the perception? As you said, like that the people understand that when they submit a transaction, they have a very high probability of that going through.
Adam.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds more like a little, if you give a mouse a cookie, sort of criticism of a strategy roadmap, like, well, we already have Paras at home, so we don't need to buy any more Paras. But there's always going to be somebody that says, well, I realize I can get the transaction within 3 minutes, but I'd really like it within 3 seconds. So that there will always be those two sides of the coin. The one that's comfortable waiting 3 minutes, and the one that wants to go in 3 milliseconds, essentially. And somewhere in the middle will be our happy medium, I suppose. But yeah, so that's part of the education and defining this ongoing strategy.
Yeah, I mean, even without Paras, Adam, the effective time to finality is I can't remember the exact number. It's 5 to 10 minutes. With Paras, you won't be reducing that, I believe. So
no, yeah, but that again is not necessarily cause to take finality out. It just means that maybe Paras isn't the right solution for finality that we're looking for.
Yeah, I'm being slightly disingenuous, because what I was quoting was a figure under non-adversarial conditions, that is the normal situation. And what Peras is designed to do is to maintain that under some level of adversarial attack. So, but you can see that the things like this, they're quite nuanced. If you say finality, well, what exactly do you mean? What do you need? And similarly, at another point, people are talking about scalability to grow to meet the demand. Well, the transaction demand, well, you can't do that because you're going to hit resource limits. So you can't scale indefinitely. So the question is, what level of scalability is sufficient for the layer 1, and where should we be promoting L2 solutions rather than L1 in order to maintain what is going to be a scarce resource? The L1 capacity is always going to be a scarce resource. We need to use it appropriately and sensibly.
Yeah, and the product committee had a lot of discussions around that, but of course they use the limited technical expertise. We got Sam, of course, there, and there's some people that are very technical, but nevertheless, that what you just described, that's 100% like a strategy that we should describe here. So if you talk about the scalability, then as you said, we should say like that the scalability of the layer 1 should be considered up to this point and for these reasons, and after that, then maybe for other application you should consider something else, right? So that's what we should start to describe here. The product committee, because there are discussions around this, and of course there's people that are very technical there, they could start to describe it, but I think it makes more sense to keep the separation of the concerns kind of separate, so that's feedback coming directly from TSC.
I think one thing that we might consider doing, Lorenzo, if this group was agreeable to that, would be to produce a document that talked about realizing the vision, realizing the strategy, what the strategy meant in the practical sense, and what the trade-offs were. So this is something which is properly within the scope of the TSC, and these are technical concerns that we could address.
It'll be really useful if you guys have the capacity. Also, we're gonna start to book some dedicated sessions for this, so that at least the chairs, but then everyone else is invited too. Then the committees can start to meet regularly and discuss this. So we get to the goal is to have something submitted on chain by around mid-October if we can. I know it's very short time, but at least like the first version, and get DREP support around that, with also details on how this should be kept updated. Because it's not a one-off, right? So we'll do it once, but then we'll need to keeping this updated regularly.
Okay. Yeah, again, I'm possibly accumulating actions myself, but I will see what I can do with that. I've made a note of them. Okay, conscious of time. The only other item I'd put on, two items on the agenda. One, to raise the issue of reactivating the hard fork working group. I don't think it's urgent yet, but we need to consider that, and we need to start putting things together for the prospective hard fork, which would happen later this year. And we need to start doing that sooner rather than later. So I'm going to propose raising that again next week for discussion. And the other point that was raised was about stipends. So there's some discussion at the ISC on Monday about stipends for committee members. I'll just give you the highlights. So the proposal was that Intersect would fund committee members from the budget that it has just had approved, Lorenzo, if I understood correctly. That the stipends would run from June 25 to June 26, and that committee members would be entitled to a stipend of 500 ADA per month of service, or for the chair, 1,000 ADA per month. We need to clarify whether that also applies to co-chairs, Lorenzo. Now, obviously, what we wouldn't well, obviously, from a professional perspective, where people are being paid by their institutions to attend the meetings, do the work anyway, I would expect people not to claim the stipend. That seems to be a matter of principle to me. There was also some discussion about what happened where, for example, the chairs attended the ISC meetings, and I said, well, we shouldn't be double claiming. If you're attending the ISC meeting by virtue of being the chair, you shouldn't be given an additional fee, additional stipend for membership of the ISC. But where there are elected members, then obviously the stipend would apply. Elected community members, the stipend would apply. So details to sort out about that. What we might need to do is to take some sort of poll and determine which of us, if any, would actually be claiming the stipends that were on offer. Johnny, do you want? Please carry on.
Another point of concern or interest is if people were elected to two separate committees, does this mean that they end up double paid because they're doing twice? Is that reasonable or unreasonable? That's the question.
Yeah, well, that's I think it's the ISC to decide. There was also a discussion about performance-related payments. So there's a proposal that payments should be based on contribution to the committees. Personally, I feel that's non-collegiate, and it leads to conflict rather than common effort. And certainly, I wouldn't want to say that any of this committee's members should be rewarded more or less based on their input to this group. We have there's a mechanism that we have to remove people from the group if they're not contributing. I think that's the better way to do things rather than to try to have some sort of performance-related component to the stipend. Lorenzo.
Yeah, I think something worth stressing is exactly for the reason that you said. So the different committees have different goals, act in different ways, and the contribution might differ, right? Also for how people can contribute. So stipend, maybe it's a word that does mislead a little bit. So the decision from last year from ISC, which now we are discussing again in the ISC to refine it, is that those more than being stipends for the amount of work that anyone does is more a token of appreciation for the participation in the effort as being a committee member has. And then if there is actual work to be done, then that's a separate discussion, separate budget, separate things. So we should look at this 500 data. In some places that's very small, in some places that's good. As a token of appreciation for the work more than anything else.
Okay, great. Anything anyone wants to add to that?
Yeah, just what I put in chat. Essentially, if you're being paid a wage, you shouldn't accept it. But also, if your company stands to benefit from information you become privy to, you should also not be accepting the stipend, in my opinion.
Okay. Do we maybe want to put down, maybe what we want to do then is to form a collective position on that, Ben?
Any feedback on that? Does anyone have a very different opinion? I'm open to hearing.
I'm wondering what confidential information you imagine is being shared in these publicly recorded and shared meetings that would give you like an insider edge.
I don't think that it's about confidentiality, but being here does make us more aware of events that are coming up, opportunities within the ecosystem, at probably a broader horizon than people who are not showing up to these meetings. Like, I would do this for free without a vote, and probably will on my, like, instead of going for my next term, because of the knock-on benefits of being more involved with Intersect. and I see this as disproportionately favoring like established consultancy companies or established service providers within the ecosystem, where let's say a community member who is not otherwise gainfully employed within the ecosystem probably deserves a stipend.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it's definitely something that everybody's going to have to decide for themselves if and when those stipends materialize. Yeah, I just don't think like a publicly open meeting, anybody could sit in, like you just mentioned, like whether or not they have a vote and be privy to that same information. So I don't know that for me, philosophically, that's a grounds to abstain from accepting as a member of the committee. But again, to each their own. So I respect that point of view as well, because I do understand.
Yeah. I don't intend to put a motion that we would bicker this out on, so I don't think we need to form a broader position around this. I think that can just stand as a comment, and we can move on, Kevin.
Okay, fine. So if anyone has anything to feedback on that for the ISC, please paste that in the Slack chat. But I think we have a general position we can present to the ISC on Monday to discussion. Great. Yeah. So yeah, see, you agree with me, Adam. If we're only turning over $200 million worth of income, then we're not getting.
Yeah, I was thinking of it in terms of 200 million worth going into the treasury,
Yeah.
not in terms of total network transaction volume.
That's why it needs to be carefully defined, right? What is this 200 million? But pretty clearly, we're taking more than that out of the treasury. So
yeah, absolutely. So
either we're depleting the treasury too quickly, or the money is being invested to get greater return later. We need to determine which it is. There's certainly enough. If we are turning over $200 million of transaction fees, there's certainly enough income coming that way, even ignoring the monetary expansion, which is declining. There's certainly enough income coming that way to support the maintenance and development of Cardano L1, but maybe not all of the other things that people aspire to. Okay, thanks everyone. Nice to talk to you. Catch you again during the week, and otherwise I'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye everyone.
Stereo by ta.